West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris, and it's my enjoyable task to welcome all of you to another West Hill gathering today. Or to put it another way, West Hill is the best church by far, with no God to threaten or scar, whether live in the hall or on a Zoom call. You're welcome, wherever you are. As is our custom at West Hill, we begin our gathering by acknowledging the land that we occupy, which is located in Treaty 20 and in the area of the Williams Treaties of 1923. These are the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and were previously occupied by the Seneca and Huron-Wendat First Nations. It is important to us here at West Hill that we commit to supporting true reconciliation in the present by honouring the 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission from 2015. Regrettably, few of these actions have been completed to date. We invite you to visit the Yellowhead Institute website. This is an Indigenous-led research and education centre at Toronto Metropolitan University. This university plays an important role in holding governments accountable, advocating for the rights of Indigenous people, and developing models of change that support Indigenous futures. Now we come to the readings, at the end of which we customarily add the phrase offered as wisdom for the journey, and we invite you to respond with the phrase, may we walk in its light. Just an invitation to do that if you would like to. So we have 3 brief readings today, all of which punch well above their weight. The first is from John T. Cacioppo, a social brain researcher. As a member of the social species, success is not the ability of going alone. Success is measured by being someone on whom others can depend. Then from Louis Cozzolino, the psychologist, it is the power of being with others that shapes our brain. Finally, from Ralph Adolphs, a neuroscientist at California Institute of Technology. We are an intensely social species. It has been argued that our social nature defines what makes us human. Offered as wisdom for the journey, may we walk in its light. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Mark Reimers, West Hill's favourite neuroscientist, and welcome him back to West Hill. Great to have you again, Mark.
Thank you.
Mark works at Michigan State University to uncover how dynamic brain activity gives rise to thoughts and feelings. He has also worked at the United States National Institutes of Health, the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, and the Virginia Institute for Psychiatric and Behavioral Genetics. Mark was the leader of the Richmond Humanists in Virginia for 5 years, and now he leads the UU Forum in Lansing. He speaks frequently at humanist and science outreach events in Michigan. So, please extend a warm West Hill welcome to our friend, Dr. Mark Reimers.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. So I want to continue with your theme about love and talk about it from a neuroscientific point of view. And so some of what I'll say you've probably heard before. One thing I'd like to give you an opportunity is to ask some questions about it, because you hear lots of things about the biology of love. Most of them have to do with sex. I'm not going to talk about sex at all. I'm going to be talking about other aspects of love. But I want to start with, sorry, I should actually play this, shouldn't I? My apologies. I want to start with a figure you have probably seen everywhere in the past couple of months. This is Punch the monkey in a zoo in Japan. He's become quite an internet celebrity because he was rejected at birth by his mother and adopted by a couple of keepers. And they gave him this plush toy that's an imitation orangutan in order to give him something to hang on to, because baby monkeys really want that contact with a mother figure. And so he's been carrying this plush toy around for really the last 2 or 3 months, more than that. And now he's beginning to make his friends, but this really stabilized him. And we have been, many of us, empathetic to his situation and to his need for relationships, even these kinds of substitute relationships. And I'd like to focus on two kinds of relationships, parenting and mentoring, and also friendships. And I want to return again and again to how they anchor us in life, that so many of the features that we think are our own are actually shared with others and are part of our relationships. So I want to start with the term empathy. We hear a lot about empathy these days, and with good reason. It's a common thread running through most of the meaningful human relationships. But it's a really, shall we say, confusing word. And you say, well, what's confusing about empathy? I feel empathy. Well, it's confusing to use the word precisely. It's confusing to use it in a way that is unambiguous. And that's because it's relatively recent. In fact, it's a made-up word that came into English only 120 odd years ago. It's a rough correspondent that was formulated in English to a German word that was invented in 1873. And it's actually not a word about human relationships at all. It's more of an art appreciation word, in fact. The idea is that a person who's experiencing a work of art, or such as a painting, experiencing that very deeply, is projecting him or herself into the situation and asking, what does this person feel? And of course, this is one of the most famous enigmatic paintings in the Western canon. So the word was adopted for human psychology um, just in the first part of the 20th century, and it's really become very prominent only in the last 50 or 60 years, and seems to have largely displaced the term sympathy. So we have now, with all of these kinds of words that are made up recent words, um, the the uses are quite different. You have one expert over here telling you something about empathy, and another expert over there telling you something else about empathy, and you may not get the same story from both people. So I think it's helpful and, in fact, important to try to distinguish the different senses of the word empathy and what they can imply about what's behind them. So I'm going to talk about three kinds of empathy. Um, and the first kind will be shared feelings, or the somewhat pejorative psychological term for it is emotional contagion. I don't think we like that term, but it's really what we mean by shared feelings, but shared public feelings. And then I'll talk about cognitive empathy, which is really about understanding other people. And then about empathic concern, about, what can I do? Now, you may say, well, just a second, aren't these all just different aspects of the same thing, the same kind of empathy? Um, and I think, we say, for example, to know him is to love him. Surely knowing someone and loving them are the same. Well, no, that's actually not the case. And I think many of us know it at our cost in our personal lives, but it's now been shown by neuroscientific methods that, in fact, these three kinds of empathy are really very distinct in terms of brain activity and in terms of their psychology, in terms of how they affect a situation. Now, it is true that often in a good, healthy relationship, you may have all three kinds of empathy, or maybe two kinds of empathy are prominent. You rarely see one kind of empathy in isolation, but you can see that occasionally. So let's start with shared feeling, or as the psychologists say, emotional contagion. And that's when you are with other people and they feel something strongly and manifest it, and then you feel the same thing. So, for example, I think we've all been in situations where there are several infants together, and one of them hurts and or is sick and starts screaming and crying, and then the whole chorus starts screaming and crying, even though nothing really happened to them. But this kind of strong emotion is very contagious in that kind of situation. Another kind of situation where we've all experienced this is laughter at a comedy club or at a movie or just with a group of friends. We're much more likely to laugh at a joke if we are with other people, and especially if we hear them laughing or see that they're smiling. Then we're more likely to laugh out loud. It's a dramatic result of fivefold more likely. It's not something that's subtle. And of course, if you're a sports fan and you go to a football game, you feel this shared emotion of excitement whenever your team scores. Well, what does that look like in the brain? So I'm going to show you three versions of the same picture. And what I've done here is shown a schematic, or I'm showing someone else has made a schematic of the right side of the human brain. And what's highlighted in green are some of the brain areas that seem particularly active when you experience this emotional contagion, when you're laughing with a group of people, or when you're crying with a group of people, or when you're very excited with a group of people, or perhaps feeling sad with a group of people. So each of those emotions has its own pattern of brain activity, but this pattern seems to be common to all of them. These two areas here, and of course, mirror image areas on the other side. Now, that enables you to share feelings with somebody. And if you're seeing somebody in pain, you may be sharing that feeling of pain or discomfort, but you may not understand why they're in pain or what's happening. And so psychologists make a distinction between sharing a feeling and understanding that feeling. Why is that person in pain? What are they feeling? Are they really in pain or something else? And what aspects of the situation make them feel that way? Now, we like to think of this as a very positive trait, and it often is, that it's an essential trait for good human relationships. But what we have found, or psychologists have found over the last few decades, is something that novelists have known for thousands of years, is that it's possible for someone to understand another without caring, without loving, that it's possible for them to understand what makes somebody tick and then manipulate them that way. And I think we see that a lot in American politics these days. So that's a kind of, if you will, kind of cold calculating empathy, but it's more an understanding of what makes somebody feel that way. And then we have what you might call, sorry, the brain regions that are associated with that are different brain regions than the ones associated with sharing feeling. In particular, a lot of these medial frontal areas and some areas that connect with memory at the back of the top and the back of the brain. And then there's another kind of empathy, which we'll call empathic concern or compassion, which is, okay, and this is often associated with the other two types of empathy, but you're motivated to do something rather than, feeling, you might feel somebody's pain and it may make you uncomfortable. You may want to get away because it's such an uncomfortable feeling. You see someone in poverty, as the famous parable of the Good Samaritan, these good people walked by the side of the street because they didn't want to be, feeling uncomfortable. But if you're empathically concerned, you are motivated to help, to reach out and to do something to actually help. And that, again, seems to activate another distinctive pattern of regions in our brains that is distinct from both of the other kinds of empathy. And in particular, some of these very recently evolved regions, again, in the forward part of the medial cortex. Now, all of these kinds of empathy are helpful. Just a second here. Where did I can't? I'm trying to advance my slide, but I can't. There we are. Okay. All of these kinds of empathy are important and often woven together in a healthy human relationship. Both, we want to share feelings. We want to be understanding each other. We want them to understand us. We want to be able to understand them. And we want to be able to be concerned to help them when they need it, even if they don't know it, or when we want them to be able to help us or be interested in helping us. So all of these kinds of feelings are important for human relationships, and they all have deep roots that go back a long time in human evolution and mammal evolution. So I'm going to switch gears just for a few minutes to talk about a molecule you've all heard of, And we sometimes hear about it as the cuddle hormone in the popular press. And that molecule is called oxytocin. And oxytocin is not a drug-like molecule. It's not like a steroid or something like that. It's actually made of the same building blocks as these amino acids, the same building blocks as all of our body, our skin, our hair, all made of groups of amino acids put together. So this is just a very short, small version of the kinds of proteins that we're built of. Um, and it's actually a very ancient, or at least it's descended from a very ancient molecule. Even fish have an analog. Now, fish don't give birth, at least not generally, but they do secrete bodily fluids into the environment, and those are controlled by a molecule called vasopressin, which is very similar to oxytocin. And about 200, 150 million years ago, when mammals really got started, they co-opted that old molecule, which had been used to expel things from the body, to make a new, to have a new function, which was to expel uh, a developing infant animal from the body. Um, and from there, as mammals became more and more successful, the um, the molecule oxytocin was co-opted to trigger all kinds of caregiving functions, such as feeding, such as uh, looking out for, defending offspring, all of those kinds of things. And has become central to our experience of love and friendship as children and as young adults. Now, we've heard a lot about oxytocin promoting love, and that's true. It does promote trust and particularly with people you are already familiar with. So it doesn't seem, this has been tried, but it doesn't seem to promote trust generally. Um, uh, it seems to promote bonding when, if you're interacting with somebody you actually know and have some familiarity with, but not necessarily strangers. It certainly promotes trust and shared feeling within a group. So in your friendship group or on your football team or whatever, or on your software development team, um, oxytocin can, promote trust, or on your work crew. Um, but it also has a dark side. We hear mostly about its effects in promoting bonding, but it also promotes group solidarity against others. So these people on the right who are, demonstrating or greeting the former dictator of Syria, they're also expressing their group loyalty, and we see that again in many dark political movements. But that trust and interdependence that trust enables have been critical in several ways in human evolution. They're first important for enabling us to work together, that we can trust each other to share the whatever goods are brought by our joint efforts. They're critical for security. If you think about it, remember our ancestors seem to have come out of the trees about 2 million years ago. If you've ever taken a safari on the savannah at night, it's a dangerous place. So somebody has to keep watch, and you have to trust somebody to keep watch. It's even been critical for what we think of as our intelligence, that we aren't really born with knowledge or even the capacity to work out the knowledge of doing so many of the specialized things we do, reading and writing and arithmetic. All of those things we need to assimilate from other people, and we need to be able to trust them in order to assimilate. No matter what our own intelligence is, we need to be able to watch and learn from others, and that requires trust. And one of the reasons that monkeys and apes don't have the kind of civilization we do is that they don't have that kind of trust with each other. Now, one of the distinctive features of human life is friendship, and that also requires trust and is also influenced by oxytocin. Um, as I mentioned in the talk in the fall about animal relationships, most animals have transactional relationships or alliances. I'll do something for you, you'll do something for me right now. But only a few animals have long-term friendships and relationships without there being an explicit quid pro quo, without demanding immediate recompense. And humans, apes, and dolphins, and elephants, and a few others are the ones that have those kinds of long-term friendships, even in times of trouble, through thick and thin. And we are unusual in the capacity for friendship we have. We can be friends with many other individuals. It's quite variable. Different people have different sort of friendship profiles. But one of the best indicators of longevity or best predictors is long-term friendships. That is, if you are maintaining an active social life with your friends, not necessarily with people on the street, but people that you know well and build relationships, that is one of the best ways of forestalling dementia and also of living a healthy, long life. Measurements have shown that people who are enjoying the company of their friends on a regular basis have lower levels of inflammation, and that tends to lead to lower levels of various kinds of autoimmune problems and also lower levels of heart disease. So those kinds of things are really critical, and that's why the epidemic of loneliness in our countries is so serious, especially among older people. I'd like to wrap up with a kind of conclusion that we in the West have for a long time taken, one of two very diametrically opposed views about spirituality. We have sometimes thought that everything that's good is sort of imposed upon our evil, basic biological nature. And against that, some groups have supposed that, well, all that we need to do is let our nature express itself and everything will be fine. The problems come from the repression. And I'd like us to thinking about, love and friendship, I'd like us to take a third point of view, and that is that all of these deeper and more worthwhile aspects of human life are woven out of our basic biological functions. They're not just let to expand, they're shaped, but they are not imposed on. They are built from and woven out of our biological functions as a beautiful tapestry. And I think this is an idea that has a good deal of resonance in the East, particularly the writings of Mengzi, the Confucian, who talked about how to grow humane hearts.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.